You're winning. You're winning. You're winning. You're winning. Hello and welcome to another episode of Epic Understanding. I am your host, Coach Love Family. I know I have some cool people in my life. I know I have some really smart professionals that I surround myself with. But tonight, I brought you some superheroes. My first superhero is cool for a number of reasons, but she shares my name. Let me bring her up. Hello, Erica. How are you?
Hi. Well, I'm Erica Driver, and my superpower is provocation, meaning that I have thick skin, but I'm more concerned about being effective than being liked. So,
Ooh,
what I
I like it. I like it. I like it. All right. The next superhero is Dr. Shelton. How you doing?
I'm doing good. My name is Dr. Anitra Shelton Quinn. My superpower is making the difference that brings about positive change for effective living.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Next superhero is Dr. Lay. I like it. I like
Hello.
it.
So my name is Dr. Lay, and my superpower is empathy. I actually love the power of empathy and the ability to understand others and see individuals from their side.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Last but not least, Terrence, how you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. And my power is probably problem solving. And the thing that I love about that is I can teach you how to solve problems without you knowing you're learning how to solve problems.
Oh, wow. Wow. That is a superpower. You'll have to unpack more about that for us a little bit later. But as you guys know, we are coming here today to talk about our youth, um, in particular, boys. I put this picture up. I this flyer up, and the question is, how can we prevent violent behavior in boys? I started on this global positive masculinity journey for so many reasons, but part of it was the amount of violence that I was seeing coming from boys and men towards themselves. Men are committing suicide at a very high rate. But then as I've begun to look at this picture even more, they're committing violence against each other and in the home. And it seems to be starting at a very young age. And Erica, if we were going to do one thing about it, where would we start?
would say let's start with the home
Okay.
because we all focus on serving the child, but we serve the child, we get them the tools they need, but they're
Mm-hmm.
going back home. And if
Mm-hmm.
home's 3 steps, 5 steps back from where we got them to, it undoes everything that you've done and you're right back to it. If not, you've caused more pain and infliction and possibly more mental health issues along with the process. So you have to holistically treat the family and the home because the mental health is stemming from some environment. My mother used to say you can't heal in the same environment that harmed you.
Hmm. Okay, that's fair. Terrence, I'm going to ask you, since you work with such a wide range of people, if it starts in the home, then what's the first action in the home?
The first action in the home is getting buy-in. One of the things that we really try to do here at our foundation is getting the family involved. You may
Mm-hmm.
bring the child to us to teach them something or to tutor them or to mentor them, but we
Mm-hmm.
always know that we got to hook the family in too, because they are going to be just like she was just saying that if you give all the kid all the tools in the world and then you send them back someplace where there's nowhere to use them or no one
Mm-hmm.
else knows them, they're just going to revert back to that environment. So if you can get buy-in from the family to see that this is worthwhile, not only just for the child, but for the entire family, for the entire community, then
Mm-hmm.
you got a whole different ballgame.
All right. Now, Dr. Lay, I think you're going to have a different answer because you start, I'm going to call it the heart, but your word for this is with empathy. Tell us about that.
I do, and actually, I do believe as well the family is a very important part to any type of healing, especially when you're dealing with kids, because a lot of times what they're suppressing, it is coming out in behavior, and
Mm-hmm.
so we tend to believe, yes, what's going on in the home. We want to investigate. We want to see exactly what's going on there. But I do have the luxury, I guess, of working one on one with younger youth, and I what started out as a fraternity thing, we started to take a big passion to it, and the boys started to get hooked. And so I do have more interaction, more one on one with the boys, and so. In building empathy, I felt that it was very important to have the ability to um, understand an individual from their perspective, in doing a lot of active listening with them, being very personable with them. And that seems to work really, really well with them, not only letting us know what goes on in the home. And that's that's one of the things that has been very effective. As soon as we started earning their trust, they had no problem letting us know, what other factors are playing a role. It was it started out as being very isolated, being very quiet, to growing to a, what, I see it, they're okay. I can go ahead and let them know or tell them what's going on. And then we start to invite families. And once they see the behavior changes in their child, they actually became more believers. They started to come more, to the clinic more. And so yeah, we went a different perspective. I mean, different way or different route with it. But I think holistically, yeah, that getting everyone involved is the key.
Okay, so I could agree with that. Dr. Shelton, you've been in this business for like 20 plus years. So I am quite sure that you have a practical story that could give us some tactical points on how to move forward because you guys are professionals. You do this every day in and day out. But lay people just don't have the same tools.
Hmm.
So, can you give us a brief story that'll help a layperson navigate these tough situations?
Definitely. One of the things as I go into that, I do want to just kind of something that my colleague said. I think it's key here. Just how you look at the situation is it helps to define how you want to approach it. So taking that ecological perspective and of course encompassing the home and getting the information from there, but also looking at the school and looking at the child themselves, looking at are there some other issues that are deep rooted in terms of disability related and things like that. Now, when it comes to what do we do, what are some practical things? I think it's so important to hear kids, to be in the moment and to hear what they are saying because my goodness, I have had so many opportunities. I'm sure my colleagues have too, to hear the stories that kids tell, to hear how they view their own lives. And when we sit back and we listen, we realize that, first of all, their scope is so different. They are
Mhm.
looking at things from a whole different perspective, from a whole different light than what we are. And so I think that's so important.
Is it just me or has she frozen?
Many is have one today as of my own son. My son, I'll use him for an example. Just today called me. He's at home with my parents. He's there just for a vacation for 9 days. And when I tell you he had a meltdown, he's like, you just don't understand. I'm just really having a hard time. I miss you. And I feel really bad and I feel really sad and I don't know why. And so I had to go from mommy mode to kind of coaching therapy mode with my own son. And some of the things I talked about with him was some coping strategies, such as, do some of the things that can take your mind to a place that will immediately take you to a place of peace. You can do drawing, you can do writing, you can go and utilize your memo on your phone to kind of speak positive affirmations. We went over some of those. So when we talk about what can we do, again, we want to be able to provide the child with things that they can do, because if you're seeing that aggression, you're seeing that those behaviors that could be obviously indicative of violence, you want to make sure that we start to address it early. We don't want to wait. You want to make sure that you look at all of the factors, look at what's going on in the home at that current time. Has there been a recent death? Is there an illness? Are there some things that are going on in environmental situation at school where there may be bullying or something like that? Get all of the data points and then provide the child with opportunities to kind of cope with whatever they're dealing with and have an escape.
That's very good. That's very good. So one of the things I heard you say is that we have to make sure that we're understanding where the child is coming from. Did I get that right? Who's good at role play? Who's good at role play? Okay. Okay. That is excellent. I got 2 girls. Fellas, you know what, Dr. Lay, you role playing.
Okay. Look, I step up. Don't play. Look.
Oh, what is that? Because you're an alpha? Is that what it is? Is that what? Okay. Now, Dr. Shelton, I'm going to have you observe, and Terrence, I'm going to have you observe. So I'm going to put you guys back and just observe for a minute. And we're going to actually try to role play out a tough situation. All right. All right. Bam. All right. This is the situation.
Okay.
You are at grandparents' house and you want to go home. Your TV, their TV does not have cable, and you left your charger at home. So now your phone, all the games that you play on your phone is dead. It's dead. Okay, and you are just frustrated. All right. And since our target is boys, you get to be the child with the concern, Erica. You get to be the therapist. All right, let's rock and roll.
So wait, I'm the therapist, or
You're
is
the parent.
No, I'm sorry. You're the parent. I apologize. You're the
parent.
parent. You're the parent.
Okay.
I apologize.
Okay.
All right.
Here we go.
And action.
Mom, can you call me on Grandma's home phone because my phone's about to cut off?
You forgot your charger?
I did. Can you please call me?
Okay. I call him. Ring, ring.
Ma, come get me.
Why?
This is ridiculous. I don't want to be here. I don't like
You
it
don't
here.
want
I
to
have no toy. I have nothing here. Why'd you make me come here?
Well, I can't make you come there because it's time to spend time with your grandparents. They're not always going to be here.
Come on, I don't want to spend time with them.
You
I don't want to
wanna
be
spend-
with them right now.
You want to get on that phone, don't you?
I got things I have to do. You know what I have to do. You know I have
Oh, you got somewhere to go?
I have sports and everything. Ma, can you just come get me, please? I don't want to
No.
be here.
How about we try this? You go find something that you would normally do if you were there and do that for a few minutes and then give me a call back. You know my number by heart?
Ma, yes, I know
You
your
just
number
said call
by
the
heart.
house phone. You know my
Because
number
my
by
phone
heart.
was about to die. I need to keep it. I need
So
to keep
put
the
your
battery.
phone down, put it in airplane mode, and try 30 minutes of doing something else.
Like what? Do what? They have nothing here. It's plastic all over the couch. I don't want to be here.
Well, you got to go to replace. I can believe it.
Look, the seed has been broken with the plastic on.
On the couch, feels it all the way. Like, oh.
That's
is
probably what I
hilarious.
heard today. Like,
Wait.
seriously, you embody my son. He called me about 10 times today, by the way. And some of that was definitely in the conversation. And you were saying exactly what I was saying as parent in some ways, definitely.
That going away.
Come on.
Like you said,
Usually-
go do something and then I'm gonna call you back in 5 minutes. That actually stumped me a little because I was like, man, that is, a great intervention, I think, to just halt me in my emotional outcry, and focus on something that I have control over. You know what I mean? So I thought that was pretty cool. I was like, oh, Okay.
I like
Yeah, I
that.
argue with that.
Hold
Hey,
me
I have to
in.
redirect kids all the time. So it's like, do this fidget spinner for 5 minutes. I'm gonna set the timer. And
Mhm.
so by the time they're finished with fidget, they're not angry anymore. They're not even upset, and they're able to communicate about what they're feeling
Mhm.
versus staying in that immediate emotion. It
I would
helps.
say that reward would have been bringing that charger.
Yeah.
You would
And
have
I
caught me.
probably would have
Would
made
have
a
got me
deal
there.
with you because I do it with my nephew. I'm like, can you survive at least two
Yeah,
days without the charger?
I know, right?
Well, you want to know, actually, I want to, I mean, we broke the scene at a really good point, but I do want to see what happens after, he gets 30 minutes and he's able to communicate a little his feelings a little bit better. I do want to see, hear what you have to say about that. Terrence,
Got
do you want to play the child with your head on straight?
you. Yeah, yeah. I'll try that one.
Okay. All right. All right. Here we
I'm still the
go.
parent.
You are still the parent.
Okay. All right, bring it on, Terrence. Ring, ring.
Hello.
Are we all right?
Yeah, I guess I'm doing a little bit better now.
Tell me what you did.
Well, I got to thinking about it, and I don't know a whole lot about Grandpa besides, to some of the stories. So I actually sat down and talked to him for a second and found out some cool stuff about our family.
Oh, really? How'd that make you feel?
It's pretty. Actually, it's actually pretty cool. I don't think a lot of that stuff. I don't even think my friends know about their families. Like I didn't know Grandpa was in the war and he went and traveled around the world. He's been places that I've never even thought about
Did you go
going.
check out his trunk?
No, I didn't know about that.
Oh, there's a trunk. Lots of awards and things in there.
So I didn't know Grandpa was a hero.
Yeah. Sometimes we have to put down our phones to learn about the people we're in the same room with every year at every holiday.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
wow.
pretty cool. I enjoyed it, and I'm definitely gonna ask Grandpa about that box. I want to see his medals.
Mm.
All right. So how about we try another hour?
Okay, how about I'll call you back when after Grandpa shows me the medals because I want to tell you
Okay,
about
that works. I
All
look
right.
forward to hearing from you about these medals.
it. Okay,
Hmm.
bye bye.
I like it. I like it. I like it. Now, Dr. Shelton, do you think it goes that well? Does it go that well?
No.
Mm-mm.
Never that.
No, 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 no.
No, it goes with, why you calling me? Why
Exactly.
call the phone? You be
Exactly.
all right.
Exactly. A lot of times what we see the emotion that's put on Front Street from both the child to parent and parent.
Oh, she's frozen. She's
Okay,
frozen.
so I would say, I don't know what's going on, but keeps doing something weird here. But a lot of times we see the emotion put on Front Street from both the parent to the child and from the child to parent. Because what happens is when the parent is giving the child a lot of times a solid advice, but maybe not being as expansive as a therapist would be, maybe sometimes already having a lot to do. And so they're rushing the situation, trying to get the kiddo to do something else so they can get back to doing whatever they're doing. And the child, on the other hand, is wanting the time right now. They're wanting the parent to fix it right now. Come pick me up. I want to go home. And so then you start to see the emotion from the child start to also kind of come in. And so you have both of these kind of emotional attacks on each other because parent wants one thing, wants child to be stable and calm down, everything to be okay so we can go back to happy normal. And child is very upset because they want to be picked up or fixed right now. And so I have not seen it go that smoothly. It did not go that smoothly today with me, and I was parent. Okay, like I said,
I learned the tool of let me check myself because you calling me about your charger. I need to cool down first. So
exactly.
I got to have my time out first to be able to respond to you. And that 30-minute wasn't about him doing the timeout. It was more about me doing the timeout.
Exactly. And a lot of times, even when we go into that, we go from parent to, especially if we're in the field, we know how to go from parent to, let me go into this mode of helping him. So I went into doing the diaphragmatic breathing. He's like, okay, 1, You know, he's doing, and we did have the conversation where everything was well. And so I like the way that Dr. Terrence is it presented the well component, because that's important to see, because things can end well.
All right. So in my mind, let me come back on camera really fast. In my mind, the kid went in there and did something destructive.
Mm.
You know, I don't have my charge. I've told you I don't want to be here. I'm upset. They don't have, cable. They're boring. They're old. I'm not used to being around them. And I've already told you I want to. Um, I want to come home. Somebody went in there and started pulling on that plastic. And
I don't know. They're not gonna move that plastic though. That's, you know. But you know what? That's grandma's house.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, there's this level of I look at this situation. I see a kid who's very comfortable with his mom. You know, to where he can express himself. So I think that that's a win-win, especially if she knows how to redirect and she's used to it. That's what I saw from America. It's just like, all right, this is nothing new. I already know how to tame you to a certain degree, if you will. But this is a young man too. When we start to see anyone or a little child emotionally act out, and we want to get them in the habit of expressing themselves, that using emotional vocabulary, that's probably the first step. And matter of fact, in my training, that is the first step, is building an emotional vocabulary, going over different emotional words and getting them used to using those words and using them in
Mm,
sentences. Because we just want them to have the right words to say what's on their mind when they know how to articulate themselves. I'm not saying that the emotion is going to completely go away, right? Because I mean, it's a child. He wants what he wants when he wants it. Was it psychologist? Which one? Who's the psychologist? I forgot who it is, right? Where they talk about, I think they study like the id, the ego, and the super ego, right? And that id wants what it wants when it wants it. I always think of a kid in that sense. Every time I hear that, I think of that kid that wants what he wants when he wants it, you know. And the main objective is to get him to that ego, you know what I mean? And that super ego is just very rigid and just, you know. But I think for myself, when I see a kid acting out, a lot of the times, especially in our work, and the mom comes and tells me about him, like, he's not going to listen to you. He's just but he's so angry. That's the first word they say to me. He's so angry. I was like, well, just leave him with us. Not leave him with us, but nonetheless, we're in a church facility. So, but that's one of the things we try to attack, as far as if it is anger and they're acting out and he can express it, like he can talk it. He knows what the word angry means. Um, he really takes that power away from his emotion. He puts it more on his ability to express himself, to talk, to communicate, especially if he starts seeing other young boys do it as well. So I think in that sense, there, with grandma being at grandma's house, there's only too much they're gonna get away with before grandma, the shoe coming, something's happening. I don't know. But at least that's how it was. I'm Generation X, so that's how it was in mine.
So do we believe in spare the rod or spoil the child? Is that what we believe in?
Spade around, spoil the child. I mean, we used to
Not
say
necessarily.
that though, right? I don't
We
know.
used to say that, but
Yeah,
depends.
yeah.
You know what? I'm gonna put a pin on that. I'm gonna let you guys marinate um, in this situation. It's coming back. I'm telling
Mhm.
you. But Desmond has some questions for us. First thing he brought up was the Highland Park shooting
Oh,
on.
yeah.
Okay, everybody knows about that. And then he had a follow-up question. He wants to know, where did things go wrong? I'm going to say the answer is a long time ago. That's
Right.
Mm.
a,
Happened.
a, a long, long time ago.
Right.
The things went wrong. But I'll give each of you an opportunity to speak on the matter. And Terrence, you get to be first because you try to be quiet. This is what happens in my classroom. Be
It's all
quiet
right.
if you want to.
No, so for those types of situations, I really believe that, like you said, it didn't just manifest itself in one day. That was
Right.
something that was a prolonged period of time and exposure and experiences and uh, thoughts that weren't interrupted that led to that event.
Mm-hmm.
Now, people always see those things and go, well, what can you do about that? Well, that's what we're talking about here. And the things that you do are just like everyone's saying, it's that empathy and it's developing that trust. I always tell my families and the kids that I work with, even my own children, is that I want them to know what it looks like, meaning what it looks like to make positive choices, to be successful, and I'm going to put them in situations where they're going to see that. Now, I can't make them make those decisions, but they're going to know what those decisions look like. They're going to know what positive decisions look like. They're going to know what empathy looks like. I'm going to develop trust with them so that even when they go left and they're supposed to go right, they can come and tell me, oh, you know what, I messed up. Okay, you messed up. Now let's fix it. So to me, what went wrong was there were not enough people interacting in the environments that that young man was growing up in to help him see what it looks like to make positive decisions, to have empathy, to have somebody that truly connects with him and cares about him on a consistent basis so that he knows what it looks like or knew what it looks like.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. Are you guys aware that he tried to kill his family?
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Erica, what are your thoughts?
Well, he had a lot of things in his life that were unmanaged prior to this public outburst,
Mm-hmm.
call it. There were prior symbols and symptoms of his mental health challenges way long ago, probably early elementary. And because that wasn't addressed, he was able to hold that in, and then it manifests and then it grows into other things: frustration, irritability. He becomes sensitive. He acted out probably more often than people realize, and probably just took it as, oh, he's just rambunctious or he's just angry about this, rather than addressing it. It left a lot of things with this child unmanaged. And I
Mm-hmm.
call him a child because his ability to understand the consequences associated with his actions, it wasn't developmentally there to be considered an adult.
Mm-hmm.
The
Hold on. I
huh?
just hold on. I just want to say really fast. I know I'm dealing with a bunch of professionals because when they call a mass shooting a public outburst, I mean, very serene, very thoughtful, very poised with their words. Go ahead on, Miss Wordsmith, Erica. Go ahead on.
What I'm saying is that he'd been exposed to abuse long before then. He playing the video games. It became realistic, just like with other things that people tend to expose themselves to over and over again. If you've ever binge watched a show before,
Mm-hmm.
and then when interacted with someone, watch and pay close particular attention to your behavior after watching that show. You
Mm-hmm.
will start to pick up on some of those behaviors. But if
Mm-hmm.
you're not self-aware and you don't recognize that behavior and how it's changing, you then that becomes a normative behavior that then perpetuates with other things picking up. It's like if you walk around with a trash bag in your house and you keep picking up stuff, and before you know it, you got a really big bag full of stuff.
Okay.
Same thing as adults, as youth, kids specifically, they pick up everything that they see and they want to demonstrate it. They want to mimic it, and not
Mm-hmm.
knowing that some of the things they're mimicking are unhealthy. Just like
Mm-hmm.
the video games, the things that we see in the video, TV, and out in social media, just it's unhealthy habits, but it's not being managed earlier.
Mm.
So that's why where things went wrong with this young man. And I wouldn't
Wow.
even say wrong; it went unchecked and unnoticed.
Unchecked and unnoticed. So I'm going to say, Dr. Lay and
Mm.
Dr. Shelton, I'm going to ask you both to address this area, but I know you're going to come at it from two different ways. Dr. Lay,
Yeah.
did we?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, no. So his case was so. I'm not going to sit and say like blown away by what was revealed, just in his background. the fact that he had emotional misconduct situations in the past. He's had run-ins with the law in the past. He now, granted, in 2020, I believe, or 2019, don't quote me on that, but I know he passed about 4 background checks. Even though in the early 2016 he had a running with the police where they confiscated a bunch of knives from his home, all this kind of stuff. So he passed 4 background checks. He purchased 2 weapons. One of them was like an AR-15. All right. So one of the things that when I saw this individual, and what jumped out to me was bullying.
Mm.
And it was so interesting with the bullying, as far as statistically, the report says girls are bullied more than boys, right?
Mhm.
However, physical bullying occurs
Okay.
more often in boys, though, right? And when
Okay.
you start to look at what happens when a young boy is bullied, they have the potential. You start looking at personality traits when they become adults, right? And first one that came to mind was like antisocial personality, right? Where you pretty much um, you pretty much have a lack of respect, right, for the rights of other people. They are unemotional
Mhm.
oftentimes. They show limited emotions. They fail to show any empathy, right?
Mhm.
They lack feelings of guilt and remorse. So when you start to see what happens when and I don't know if he was actually I don't know if he was bullied when he was growing up, but studies show that kids, little boys who are bullied at young age, starting at 7 years old, as early as 7 years old, tend to develop these personality traits, right? So
Mhm.
when we do that, and that's what really, honestly, that's what made me feel like, you know what, I have to do something with the youth, because my empathy program, although geared towards police and the police academy, and starting that empathy program there, and just doing the interviews with police officers, interviewing just people in general, and seeing how far back a lot of the emotional disturbances go. It's just like, you know what, you got to go to the kids. So here we see this individual who again had police interaction in the past, who still went through a background check, still passed those background checks, was able to get the weapons, was able to bias. And that was another thing when I read about this guy. It was racially motivated and bias bullying, some type of bias-based bullying. So whether it's sexual orientation or their racial ethnicity, that type of bullying was the highest amongst young boys. So it was just so many things that were, what I read previously or research that I've done previously, and then seeing this case and just seeing things, how they connect the dots, right?
Mhm.
That I think it makes it equally important for us, for teachers, for parents, for adults and children, and, to not only learn empathy, but how to employ it, how to apply it to their life at a very early age, as early as we can get it. So
Mhm.
that's my take on it.
All right. So, what are your thoughts on this particular situation? Because he's asking about the environmental and the disabilities that this particular young person. I think it's appropriate to call him a young person,
Mhm.
other than because he might be over 21, but certainly his frontal lobe is not fully developed.
Mhm. Exactly right.
Mhm.
One of the things that comes to mind, and I'm going to get to that part about the disability and emotionality, but 2 things come to mind for me: accountability, for one. And I have to say that because we have to be able to see the invisible kids. We have to see the invisible kids. We have to see those kids that have significant depression, those kids that are being bullied, who are a lot of times out of sight, out of mind. And I've done a lot of research on bullying, and actually have had the opportunity to do a lot in with across the Houston, Texas, and Victoria, Texas area, working
Mhm.
with students that have been bullied, using some of my students from the University of Houston, Victoria, when I was director there. But when we talk about accountability, I think we have to go back to saying, who did not stand up and say, I see you?
Mm-hmm.
Who didn't provide the support when there was this child that was crying out? Okay, that's the accountability piece. And when I think about that, I think about so many times when you go into a school, you see the child that's sitting, and I know you guys have seen this like I have, sitting by themselves as a child who people are turning their nose up at, and we see that. And the question is always in my mind, has anybody said anything? Has anybody done anything? Because I'm going to, but of course that's what we do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so the other thing is experiential history. What has happened in this child's past? What has not happened? What areas haven't been resolved? What areas haven't been addressed, such as emotionality? And when we start talking about issues like this, of course, we have to take into
Oh,
consideration emotional disturbance and things. That when we talk about emotional disturbance, what does that mean? Does that just mean depression? Does that just mean inappropriate behavior under normal circumstances? Is that happening at home and at school? What interventions have been put in place at home? What interventions are being put in place at school? Does this child have, one thing I have to say, when I was doing my doctoral internship a long time ago, I remember Dr. Scott Poland, he was my trainer, but he's also highly published in the area of school violence. And one of the things we talked about in there and learned was, if a child has at least 3 to 4 people that they can rely on, those 3 to 4 people may be the one thing that give them the reason to survive, the reason to live, the reason not to hurt themselves, the reason not to hurt someone else. Just being able to have people around you that will be able to deposit into you the strength that you don't have for yourself, the strength that you're lacking,
mm,
being able to give you something that's going to build you. And I think that's so important when we talk about young boys, because we have a kind of a perspective of how a young man should act. They shouldn't cry, okay? They have to be strong at all costs, no matter how bad it hurts. They have to be able to take a punch because, hey, it's a rite of passage. Well, I'm here to say it's not. Okay. I think it's so important for us to consider all these things. And again, like my colleague said before me earlier on, he is a child. This is a young man, and this is a cry for help. And when we see a cry for help, we have to recognize that if someone is crying for help, that means there's a whole bunch of stuff in their experiential history that has not yet been dealt with, has not yet been addressed. And at this point, they have reached bottom out. I don't know what else to do. This is not making an excuse. This is looking at the data and saying there were other issues that preceded what we see now, and this was the outcome of an invisible child.
mm. Maybe that's okay, the case. And let's say that is the case. Everybody cannot control, we can't control the fact if you have a neglectful parent, right? That is kind of out of our hands. And so that's why I brought up Terrence, because your program helps the collective. Can you break that down a little bit for us? How does your program help the collective? Oh my goodness, he's on mute. Can't hear you.
There we go.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry about that. So our program, and the beauty of it is, and I can't even take credit for it, Archie Moore, famous light heavyweight champion, came up with the concept. And so there is a thing that he really refers to as the concept that we teach our youth. Everybody that comes through there, we'll have adults, kids together, and we teach them this concept, which is problem solving. It's thinking about your future, it's thinking about decisions, but most of all, it's really connecting with every person in the room. So that even if you go out of our facility and you go someplace else, you're likely to see somebody that was there with you because it's your community that you're in here with.
Mm-hmm.
And if not, you still are able to connect with us to have feedback on that same thing. We've had kids from 20 years ago call us back after something's happened and said, hey, you know what, I messed up. Can you either write a letter of reference for me or help me work some community hours? All right, come on back. This is what we're here for. And we really impress upon them that nobody's perfect. You're going to make mistakes. We all make mistakes. I've made mistakes. Everyone has. The point is, you got to be accountable for what you do. and know, and I teach them to know going into it. If you're going to do something and you know it's wrong, know that you're making that conscious choice. So the accountability and the consequences, you got to be willing to accept those too. I'm not one that says, okay, all right, you did it, you had a bad situation, I understand where you're coming from now. If you're going to go that path, know where it leads to and take responsibility for it. So
Okay.
go ahead.
I wanted to take a look at this particular concept because, you know, I'm going to venture and say that Desmond is Generation X. Because this is how we act, right? We had a lot of bad stuff happen to us. We ran around on our bike and stuff like that and wandered the neighborhood. We were bullied. Stuff happened, but we just had to dust ourselves off and pick ourselves back up and kind of gone about our business. And so when the generation after us, the millennials, were very emotional about a lot of things. There was confusion from Generation X. It's like, what are your feelings? What? It's like, huh? I'm not saying that was the right response. I'm not saying that's the right response. What I am saying, that's how Generation X responded. If you don't take you and your feelings on somewhere, that's how we act, right?
But coach, and just like everyone here know, we've had a history, like chronic history of this lack of accountability, lack of empathy. When we see situations like this that are racially motivated, oftentimes we have to then piggyback on. I've always thought racism should have been a mental health disorder. I thought it was going to be in the DSM-5, I'll be honest. And when it wasn't, I was like, man, they really don't see how racism literally coincides with narcissistic personality. When you see the
What,
lack of empathy,
we were gonna, that
you
came
know,
up. That came up right here.
and
Can a
narcissistic
narcissist,
behavior. Oh my God. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Oh yeah. And the thing about it is, it's like you see the lack of empathy. You see the sense of entitlement, right? And you see the exploitative behavior. Like it's all present. I don't understand how we don't jump into this, like especially as clinicians, like how we haven't like put a tiger team together and figured that out yet. Because when we see this, we let media get a hold of it, and they will say that this is an individual who is mentally challenged or mentally disturbed or something. He had an emotional, traumatic past or something like that, right? And so that in and of itself, because we do practice empathy a lot of the times, there is going to get this sense of sympathy, really, and for him, for the simple fact, like, oh man, I wonder what happened to him emotionally. Everybody wants to go to that level instead of looking at accountability. And when we don't do that, it's like you just get a pass, and it happens again, and it repeats itself. It repeats itself. So, I think for us, I agree with Terrence in the fact that lack of accountability, and Doc as well. The lack of accountability is where it starts, especially for an adult, because you can be tried as an adult at 18. It is what it is. Well, shoot, I think you can be tried before then. Don't quote me on that, but nonetheless, once that happens, once they can, from a military standpoint, they can send you overseas. They saying at that time you are held accountable for your actions, but we don't see that in these type of cases, and it does rub us emotionally. It emotionally drains us, as individuals, as adults, because we see this type of behavior happening. So yeah, narcissism is chronic when you have a lack of accountability. You can't help but those personality traits to start rearing its ugly head, like, oh, nothing's going to happen to me. You know, uh, it's just this lack of remorse. I mean, it's just prevalent. I think, I believe.
Erica, when you're this far down the line, can you still grow emotionally?
If you're willing to do the work and someone's willing to walk with you and do the work.
Mhm.
It's not he's not, we've seen by his action, he's not able to recognize, like you
Mhm.
said, the narcissistic behavior. Most narcissists don't think there's anything wrong with anything that they've done. And so it comes, I mean, you go back to 12 steps. First one's acknowledging what has occurred. So he has
Right.
to acknowledge that I have done some wrong to some people based off of my own personal beliefs. And then decide, do I want to continue to sustain my beliefs, or do I want to move beyond and forward from my beliefs? So it begins inward with that individual across the board, not just this young man, but all of the young men that have recently committed acts of violence in communities across America and the world. It starts with them deciding, do I want to address this behavior, or am I going to stay in this? And then also getting them the help.
Mhm.
Because
So-
we throw them in jail and then we're like, okay, you're done.
Yeah.
Let me take this all the way back around to the phone,
Mhm.
because it's like it's almost the same emotion. I mean, the same emotion, but in a bigger sense with bigger consequences. Okay. I want something, I'm not getting it, therefore I'm going to be destructive and act out.
Mhm.
Okay. So, Dr. Shelton, help me on this.
So that's a social skill, right? When
Okay.
we talk about kids having age appropriate social skills to be able to manage their emotions, to be able to manage the that's on the inside because this didn't happen or that's not happening the way that I envision it. And one of the things that's so important, that's why I mentioned accountability again. And I say that from the perspective of when kids go to school, they're not only there to learn academically, they're also there to develop socially and emotionally. And what needs to happen is the eyes that are on them have to be responsive to when a child does not display age appropriate social skills to the extent where they're able to manage their emotions, manage their behavior, and manage themselves, manage their bodies, right? And when teachers see that, teachers, administrators, even the custodian, right? You may have a kid that's in the hall that's doing things to hurt other kids, but nobody's seeing it but the custodian, right? We have to be able to make that known and then put social skills interventions in place to teach that child how to respond to their own internal anger or whatever the case may be. And so a lot of times that's going unnoticed. It's kind of just, oh, that's just little Joey, or that's just so and so, or he's just like that, or he's just no, we've got to get away from that, and we have to start addressing the issues and stop coddling it. It has to be addressed. There needs to be, and one of the things I'm really big on, I did this a few years back in one of the districts that I was working with, but even just mental health screening early on. Not necessarily just talking about from a special education, emotional disturbance perspective, but from a mental health, general education for all kids, screenings when kids are younger. Because when you do that, then you can put some things in place that help them to develop. Because honestly speaking, most parents do not have the time nor the, let's just say, the professional set of skills to be able to help kids develop in that way, right? A lot of kids don't just kind of know, well, this is what I'm supposed to do, right?
Okay. Terrence, if you would you have a um, emotional intelligence class in elementary school?
So and I love the point that you made. And one of the things I wanted to, so the short answer is yes, but I'm going to keep talking. So part of that is schools are the biggest microscope that we have to view our children and to help them. Yet that microscope is funneled because it doesn't see the things that we can use to really help them. It sees the things that, and I'll say it, they can use to get more funding instead of what needs to be done to say help the whole child or help the whole community. And I know teachers. I love teachers. You guys got tough jobs. I'm not blaming the teachers. I'm not blaming the school. I'm just saying that system is not set up and designed with the best interest of all children in mind. It's a system that's set up for a system. And you talk to most teachers, they'll tell you that. It's not set up for the children. It's set up for the system. And so,
it's set up for the system to support the system no matter what it has to leech off of.
That's
yes.
right. That's right.
Yes. And so looking at that and using that as a tool instead of just using it as a vehicle would be beneficial to society as a whole, to be able to, and you go into schools, and I love going to schools because that whole microcosm to me is just, it's just, I love watching people and different interactions and personalities. So that's fun to me. People think I'm weird for that, but that's just me. But you go to some of these schools and you look at the environment, and I'm shaking my head. I'm looking at this school. I'm like, do you realize you built this school to look like a prison? I'm like, oh, what do you mean? I mean, you got a 3-story building with a courtyard with tables in the middle and fencing around all the rails. That's what it looks like on the inside of a jail. So you're already conditioning them to be in a jail when they're in.
Do you think that's on accident? Because they start building
No,
prisons.
absolutely not.
No, if you look at the schools
yeah.
in certain communities, they're distinctly different. More urban community schools are built like miniature prisons and jails.
Yeah.
And
It's hard to get in. It's not easy access, very limited natural lighting. And if you go into the more suburban areas where people were of a higher income, it is like a pleasant country club experience. You walk in, there's greenery and everything. So it's distinctly different.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
That's one of my pet
I've seen
peeves.
it too. Very true.
Yeah.
So very true. Across the United States too, because I've gone to a lot of schools across different states, and this is so true. And that in and of itself creates a conditioning, if you will, right, for the behaviors that we see. And then
Well, I have a challenge question. I have a challenge question because, a lot of these mass shootings are coming right out of the suburbia, and this is what we get. I never thought it would happen here. Every time, I never thought it would happen here.
So now,
I never thought it would happen.
now the challenge, I would challenge the challenge question with
Okay.
in our communities, and there are in certain communities, it's not happening in the school, it's happening on the corner every other weekend.
Well, see,
And
a mass
it's not-
shooting. Okay, how can I put this?
A mass shooting, the number of
It's-
people
it's
that
four.
are, yes,
Four.
that's
Four.
the definition.
Okay, but this is how can I put this? The difference is, and not that it's not. I'm not making one right or wrong. When you have a goal to go shoot up somebody specific that that's one thing. I don't like this person because. Not saying it's a good reason, but because you stepped on my shoe, because you looked at my girl, because I felt disrespected, could be because you were over my cousin's house and said something smart. There is a because that is specific to you. Doesn't have to be a good reason. It's just the actual because. It can be dumb as I don't know what. Then you have the mass shootings that are, I just don't like people. I don't like certain groups of people, or I'm just in pain. I just want to hurt people. And that is so that is so different. That's just a completely different problem. That is a completely different problem. And that one is so hard to get my head around and hand around, because we can work on community relations and learning how to value, person to person. Okay. It is so difficult for me to understand. I woke up today and I don't like anybody. And so I want to shoot a bunch of people I don't know.
Well, and to be, with this individual here, though, they saw clues. The music he was pumping out, the information he was, relaying. I mean, it was a buildup, right? And interesting enough, when we talk about the school system, the second word, system, right? We first have to accept the fact that systems are not broken if they were designed to do what they're doing, right? That means it was never broken. And let's just say if many of us feel helpless trying to fight a system, okay, then it will look like the ownership must be placed on us, the community, or the parents, or whoever have you. Even with this individual here, even with the shootings that happen on the corner versus in the school, right? Everything that if we were to not only teach how accountability should be applied, how
Mhm.
emotional intelligence and empathy and these different skills that literally can be employed at a very young age. I mean, like extremely young. And they start practicing those skills throughout. By the time you reach 14, you have
Sure.
adopted behaviors that are so effective in their
Mhm.
communication. And that's like intrapersonal as well as interpersonal. Doesn't matter,
Mhm.
right? One's personal,
Mhm.
one's social. They know how to communicate, they know how to
Mhm.
express their feelings and things of that nature.
Mhm.
It's almost like that is what we're trying to attack. And sometimes it does feel like we're fighting uphill, because we know a system is set up like you. I didn't even think about that
Mhm.
with the schools, and I grew up in North New Jersey. I didn't even think about that with the school, the way it was designed. Because in certain
Mhm.
schools, it do look like a country club versus when I see my school, but
Mhm. Mhm.
but something just like that. Who knew? But that the system is set up like that. So it's like from the beginning, we're saying you're going to be in this system. So it's designed. Now, how you going to fight it?
Mhm.
Then you start looking at, okay, the ownership is on us. The
Mhm.
accountability is on us. We
Mhm.
have to do different. We have to take a different
Mhm.
approach in a community with our children,
Mhm.
parents being held more accountable, if you will. But they gotta want that. And I think accountability is a skill and it's a luxury to actually adopt that type of personality or that type of behavior.
Mhm.
And most parents, just being, if they're stressed, if they're overwhelmed, if they got so many kids, they got a lot going on, they
Mhm.
do think kids going to school is like a break. They do think that's the second parent.
Wow.
You know what I
That you
mean?
you you
So,
hit on something
mm.
right there. Our hour has gone by so very
Oh wow. Okay.
yes. You know, that's time flies when you're having fun. This is what I would like from
That's
from you guys. I want you to tell our audience, our parents, a tool or a tactic that they can get to and use immediately. And then you can tell people where to find you and maybe a little bit about your business. And so, Erica, I'm starting with you just because I like your name. Am I biased? Yes, I am. Erica.
Okay, so for 20 years, I've taught people to use the song, which you can use as adults. Stop and think. That's the important link. Giving yourself some time before you make up your mind. That is something you can teach children. That is you as an adult can use. Stop, think. That's the important link. Giving yourself some time before you make up your mind. It's a song I've taught children all over the St. Louis region for years.
Mm,
Tool that I think every parent should get to is trying to get some mental health first aid, not only for themselves, but for their family. I know in Missouri, a lot of the sessions are still online and they're free. So they can get to them for free. And you may be able to find them other places that are free to get mental health first aid to how to help yourself possibly and help the person that you're a caregiver for.
mental health first aid. I like that. I like that. Terrence?
So for me, I think a big thing would be self-care skills. So
Okay.
learning to take care of yourself and teaching your children how to do that. And that's everything from breathing exercises, meditation, anything that you can think of around that. There's a great group called Core Experience that has some of those tools online that'll teach you. We work with them here at the foundation, and you can just go to coreexperience.org and check those out. And as a coach myself and someone that's been an athlete my entire life, I really believe that getting our kids getting involved in their world and getting them involved in something that they can feel proud of and
Mhm.
where someone believes in them more than they believe in themselves. And it's not just daddy because daddy thinks you're the greatest thing in the world because I'm your daddy and of course you are, but someone outside is actually telling them that they're doing well and is pushing them on. All the more people and the more connections they can have that are positive like that, that's where you start with me.
Okay. Excellent. Excellent. Dr. Lay.
Yeah. So one of the things that I teach a lot of my kids, when they do come in, first day that they come in, we talk about manners, right? And this is our start to empathy, and why empathy is important. But one of the things we teach them is becoming their own best friend, or similar like a golden rule, and that's determining what others would want done unto them, and then do that. Or if you had, if you're becoming your own best friend, if you had an issue or problem, what would you tell your best friend? How would you tell them to resolve it? And whatever you tell them, how you would tell them to resolve it. If you love them, if you care for them, their safety and things of that nature, then that's what you should be doing. But the other thing I would say for families, for teachers, and parents is like to learn these tools and to have an effective tool. I think there's a website called Udemy. Has anybody ever heard of that? Udemy is online certifications, online training tools, where they teach not only empathy, emotional intelligence, but there's one specifically, Empathy 101, which is the basics for learning empathy. Parents can
Mhm.
go there, get this tool off of Udemy. It's like $19 or something like that. And it goes step by step of how to not only communicate with your kid, but how
Mm.
to start at a very young age. Empathy 101. Okay. And it's Udemy is UDEMY. Okay. And they have a plethora of courses on there. Okay. But I think start there, start with the basics, the basic language, nothing difficult with it. But I would strongly encourage them to start there. And I am in the process of getting all my social media stuff, content, and everything together. But one of the things I do have, if you have any questions for me, especially on my empathy core class that I do with young teens, my empathy class that I do with Police Academy, I am at info@menintervention.com. Yeah, .com. All right. Info@menintervention.com if you have any questions about that.
Awesome. All right.
One of the things I think is going to be so important for parents is talking to your kids. Take out the time to have quality conversation with your kids. Doesn't matter how old they are. And the other thing is making sure to have them do positive affirmations, build them from the inside out every single morning. I have my boys do it, and it sets the tone, it sets their day, and it gives them that thing that where they have that S on their chest for superhero. I can do anything because I know who I am, because I have defined who I am. And I think that's so important. I can be found at Dr. Anitra Shelton Quinn.com. And Anitra is spelled like it sounds, ANIT as in Tom, RA. Dr. Anitra Shelton Quinn.com.
That is amazing. I really appreciate that. So, family, I just am in awe about how amazingly smart you guys are and how many resources that you have right off the top of your head. As you know, we are talking about our youth all month long for the month of July. So I absolutely hope to bring you more good tips, more information that you can use immediately in your home. Just to help you win. So that's it for this evening, and I'm simply going to say bye bye for now.
You're winning.